Hi, and welcome to part 9 of my Python Programming for Beginners tutorial series. In the last video, we went over lists, which is one of the 4 data types for collections in Python. Today, we're going to be looking at tuples, which is another type of data in Python used for collections. The key features with tuples really is that they are immutable, so you cannot change them. We're going to see ways to kind of get around not being able to change them. There are ways that you can update tuples and add to tuples. Another thing is that the order that you put them in is the order that they will stay. Again, once again, like there are ways to change it, but it does involve basically converting it to a list, which we will see that in this video. So let's go ahead and let's get started with just showing us how to create a tuple and what is exactly a tuple. So a tuple is very similar to a list to where you can store data in them. Now, in a list, we saw that it was square brackets. A tuple is actually going to be the parentheses or round brackets. And we can put any type of thing in here. And now when I say that they're ordered, it just means that the order that they're in is the order that they'll stay. So they won't shift at all. There's no sorting methods on a tuple. Basically, the order that you show them is the order that it'll stay for the rest of the execution of the program. So here we have a numbers tuple. You can have as many items in here as possible as you want, really. Very commonly, tuples that I've seen in the past is like 2, 3, but you can have as many as you want. And tuples are really important because you'll have a lot of modules that will give you results back in tuples, which you can then unpack, which is called tuple unpacking, which we will see as well. So this is just a numbers tuple, and then let's do another type of tuple here. Let's call it fruits. And let's just create a bunch of fruits here. So we have apples. Let's do bananas. And let's do cherry. All right, so now we have our 2 tuples here. Now, tuples is pretty much all you can really do with them. The cool thing that you can do with tuples, though, is you can do this. So let's say we have fruit 1, comma, fruit 2, and comma, fruit 3, and then equals fruits. And we should be able to do this, I believe. So this is what's called tuple unpacking. So in theory, if I remember correctly here, when we have our tuple here, fruits, we have fruit 1, fruit 2, fruit 3 equals fruits. So that will actually unpack them in that order. So let's see what this gives us here. Yeah, so this gives us apples. If I do fruit 2, we will see bananas, and then fruit 3 is going to be cherry. So basically, this is a very common way. So if something gives you back a tuple as a result, you just kind of set up all your different variables equals to the tuple, and it basically unpacks that tuple into those variables. Another way that you can do it is if we just did fruit, if we just did fruit 4, let's say here, and let's equal it to fruits, and let's put it to index 0. So very similar to lists, we can actually reference the index. Again, it starts the 0-based index here, and you reference them with the square bracket notation, just like a list. So we have everything here, and then we still have apples here because 0 is the first item in the tuple. So that is how you would access the tuple or unpack the tuple. Now, if we try to edit a tuple here, so let's actually just work with the numbers tuple here. So I'm just going to erase this here. You guys can always go through this video again to see these examples. So let's play around with the numbers tuple here, and let's just say numbers 0 equals 100. And then we print out the numbers, and then we're going to print numbers here as well. So here we will see, when we see it is immutable, so we actually managed to print out the tuple at first, and then when we try to assign index 0 to 100, we actually got an error here, and then it gives us the error of tuple object does not support item assignment. Now this is where how tuples are immutable or not changeable. This is what that means. So basically, you can kind of think of a tuple as almost like a constant. Once it's set, it's set for the rest of the program, unless you do these kind of backdoor methods or workarounds. So let me just show you guys what I mean by that here. So if we did a temp here and we did list numbers here, and then we did temp 0 equals 100. And then what we can do is we can do numbers equals tuple temp. And then what we're going to do is we're going to print numbers here. And we're going to print numbers here. So here, what we're looking at here is we have our tuple of numbers. So we're going to print it off. And then what I'm doing is I have this variable called temp, signifying like temporary. It's just going to be there just to hold that tuple in memory, but we're going to be converting it to a list when we store it into temp. So we're converting this tuple into a list and then changing the 0 index to 100, and then we're reconverting that list into a tuple and then printing it out. So let's see how this works here for us. So here we can actually see that we actually did manage to kind of change, per se, the tuple, the first index of the tuple here. Now we can use this very, very similar logic and idea of lists to actually even append to the list or add to the end of it. So what we can do here is we already have our numbers printed here. So let's do another temp here, and we're going to convert numbers to a list again. And we are going to do temp dot append, and let's append the number 42, since that's the answer to everything, it seems like. So we're just going to append that here. And then we're going to reset numbers to tuple of temp. And then we are going to go ahead and print out the numbers tuple again. So let's run this here. So here we can see our first tuple, and then we change the index 0, and then we actually appended to it as well. So those are kind of the ways that you could work around the limitations of tuples, of it being like a set list. Now you can even sort the tuple if you convert it to a list, and then sort the list and then reconvert it to a tuple. You can do anything you really want to a tuple if you convert it to a list, and then you can do list operations on it and then reconvert it to a tuple and use it later on and do the tuple unpacking with it. So that's really pretty much it for tuples. They're not really too complicated. Again, there is a iteratable loop for these. But like I said, the loop is really similar for all these different data types of collections. So that's going to be in a separate video once we go over all the collections again. In the next video, I will be going over sets. So these are, again, a special data type for collections in Python. And after that, we will be looking at dictionaries. So be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to find out when those videos get released. And I will see you on the next video.